Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The issue of economic uncertainty, how Canada is addressing inflation declines and growth pressures is getting the public's attention. The decline in inflation and the pressures of economic growth have significant implications for daily life and overall economic stability. A decrease in inflation helps reduce the cost of living as prices of goods and services stabilize. This is crucial for maintaining purchasing power, particularly for those on fixed or lower incomes. On the other hand, growth pressures can lead to increased unemployment, reduced investment and lower wages, which in turn diminish the quality of life for many individuals. Since August 2024, Canada has been navigating a complex economic landscape characterized by declining inflation and mounting growth pressures. The Bank of Canada has played a pivotal role in this period, implementing a series of interest rate cuts to stimulate the economy. By December 2024, the Bank of Canada had lowered its key policy rate to 3.75% to support slow growth, with Governor Tiff Macklem emphasizing the need for preparedness against future economic shocks. And to know more about the issue, I will let my friends who is in Canada right now to explain further.
Hi, I am NISA live from Toronto, reporting on the history of Canada's inflation trend from the 1980s and 1990s. During the time, Canada experienced significant inflationary challenges that shaped its economic policies as the inflation reached a peak of 13%, driven by soaring oil prices, strong consumer demand, and global economic uncertainty in the early 1980s. In response, the Bank of Canada implemented a restrictive monetary policy, raising interest rate to over 20% in 1981. While this successfully reduced inflation, it triggered a deep recession with GDP contracting by 5% and unemployment peaking at 12%. This period highlighted the effectiveness of tight monetary policy, but also drew attention to its economic and social costs. The Bank of Canada subsequently strived to ensure better control of interest rate to influence economic activity and price levels. Later in the 1990s, the bank was to improve its monetary policy framework by introducing formal inflation targeting within a 1 to 3% range, aiming to create a balance between aggressive intervention during high inflation and rate cuts to support growth when inflation subsides.
Hi, I'm Aisyah, now live in Malaysia, reporting on current inflation trend of Canada. Between August and November 2024, Canada's inflation fluctuated as the Bank of Canada adjusted interest rate in response. In September, inflation dropped to 1.6%, prompting the central bank to cut rates to stimulate economic growth. However, by October, inflation rebounded to 2% due to higher energy costs and consumer spending. The bank slowed the pace of rate cuts to avoid risking inflation rising further, ensuring inflation stabilized near the targets. This can balance between supporting economic growth and maintaining price stability, reflected that central bank are careful on management of monetary policy.
Hi, my name is Shakira, live from Quebec, Canada. So today we are taking a closer look at recent monetary policy decisions by the Bank of Canada and the challenges it faced going forward. So in the last few months, the Bank of Canada made 2 consecutive interest rate cuts, reducing rates by half a point in both September and October. So this shift follows months of aggressive rates hikes aimed at curbing inflation, which peaked in mid-2022, and as a result, Canada inflation rate ticked down to 1.9% in November, a sign that the bank's strategy to control inflation has been successful. However, these rate cuts are not without risk. On one hand, lower rates are intended to stimulate growth by making borrowing cheaper for businesses and consumers. But on the other hand, there's a risk of overheating the economy if the cuts lead to too much demand, potentially driving inflation's back up. Moreover, if the bank cut rates too frequently or aggressively, it could undermine its credibility in fighting inflation, especially if the economy rebounds too quickly. And one of the major challenges the bank faces is finding the right balance between controlling inflation and supporting economic growth. So a slowing economy can keep inflation in check, but if the bank cut rates too much, it risks reigniting inflation or triggering asset bubbles. Policymakers have to tread carefully to avoid both extreme, fighting inflation while encouraging sustainable growth. Another challenge lies in managing expectations. Consumers and businesses are navigating a constantly shifting economic environment, and confidence is key. If businesses expect higher inflation or more rate hikes, they might hold back on investments or spending, which could slow down recovery. And the bank must maintain its credibility and ensure that Canadians have confidence in the economic directions. And to sum up everything, the Bank of Canada recent rate cuts are signs of the bank's attempt to manage inflation while fostering growth. But as we have seen in previous cycles, these policies come with risks, and the key challenge will be balancing the fights against inflation with the need for a stable and growing economy.
Thank you, Shakira. Hello everyone, I am ADILA. I will continue to proceed with the comparative insights. We will first discuss about the introduction of inflation targeting by the Bank of Canada in 1991. In the 1970s and 1980s, there was high inflation and they experienced periods of double-digit inflation. There was also economic instability during the era. Therefore, the 2% inflation targeting was introduced by Canada's central bank. Based on Canada's central bank targets inflation because a low, stable and predictable rate is good for the economy. When people and business feel confident that they know what the rate of inflation will be, they can make long-range financial plans. That leads to an economy that functions better. Average economic growth is stronger and employment is higher. In this era, they say their experience inflation tends to be close to the 2% targets when the economy is running near its capacity, which is when demand for goods and services is roughly equal to what the economy supplies. If demand is greater than what the economy supplies, this can push inflation above their target. If demand is less than capacity, this can pull inflation below 2%. We will continue to the positive impacts of inflation targeting. There are several positive impacts that we could see when Canada introduced inflation targeting. The first one is enhanced price stability. The second one is improved economic performance. And the last one is strengthened monetary policy credibility. Next, let's see the implication for Canadians. How inflation and interest rate policies affect household, business and investors. For household, financial strain, high inflation and elevated interest rates have increased living costs, with many Canadians feeling financial strain. The cost of living remains a top concern, though there are signs that the negative impacts are no longer broadening. Next, the effect for businesses is operational costs. High borrowing costs have increased operational expenses for business, leading to cautious spending and investment strategies. However, as interest rates decrease, businesses in sectors like finance, technology and energy might take more risk and resume investment in a more favorable macro environment. Next, the effect for investors is market volatility. In December 2024, major central banks, including the Bank of Canada, implemented significant rate cuts, marking the largest policy easing since the COVID-19 pandemic. This move aimed to stimulate economic growth and manage inflation.
To conclude, Canada's inflation story is one of challenges and adaptations. Even though inflation has now reached the Bank of Canada's 2% target, the economic growth remains fragile due to various domestic and global challenges. Balancing the economic benefits and social costs requires careful monetary policy adjustment and fiscal measures to stimulate investment and protect vulnerable populations. From the Islamic perspective, Islam emphasizes justice and equitable distribution of resources. A prolonged inflation or deflation can disrupt economic balance, causing harm to vulnerable communities. Hence, the government and central bank's action of addressing the economic uncertainty are aligned with these principles while fostering long-term growth and sustainability. For more insights on recent Canada's economy and inflation trends, you can explore more by scanning the QR code below. That's all for today's news. Thank you.